Well, we do like a challenge on this channel, and I think we've got one out here in Greece. We've made a very average start, and today we've got the derby against top of the table. So we're only 5 league games into the season, although we have played a lot of games in European competition, and we've brought you back for a game today against our local rivals Aris, who are top of the table. They've won 4 of their 5 games, whilst we've only won 3, drawing 1 and losing another. We'll talk you through the form in a moment, but things haven't really settled down at PAOK yet. Partly, I'm to blame. In fact, exclusively, I think I'm to blame. I haven't really got to grips with the club yet. We've got lots of players who are unhappy about transfers being denied to them. We've got a lot of players that are very unhappy about the training that they're receiving. We've got other players that just cannot get fit. In fact, if we show you the team that we started with in our last game, you'll see that 4 of them are out of action today. In particular, I think we need to have a word with the club chef, because 1 or 2 of our players every single week seem to be going down with food poisoning. So that seems like a bit of an unnecessary way to be losing players. Also, the age of this squad is starting to harm us with playing in Europe and with having a lot of league games in the Greek season. We're playing 2 games a week and these boys just can't hack it. We've tried to give them a break over the last week, but 10 of them jetted off to play for their international team, so they've come back just as tired as when they departed. But whilst those are all problems that have been forced upon me, the fact that I've not really been able to settle on a formation or a way of playing is all completely on me. I think the trouble is we don't really have a standout player that I can build a system around. So instead, I've just been tweaking and morphing, and today we're going to try something new again. And here's my problem. We're playing 3 at the back, and with that system, I can either make us defensively solid, or I can make us score goals. But I don't seem to be able to do both during the same game, really. And surprisingly, with 3 central defenders, we look incredibly exposed at the back to balls in behind. Granted, these defenders are all either in their late 20s or early 30s, but their pace is not the worst, but they keep getting exposed. So today I'm hopeful that the addition of a player playing just in front of the back 3 who's going to try and close down attacking midfielders and creative number 10s and stop them playing these little through balls in behind our defence, well, I'm hopeful that that little addition will help us out. We're playing a very similar system to what we were in the first episode, except it's gone a little bit asymmetric now. Rather than a right winger, we've moved it over to be a defensive midfielder, but we've been experimenting with a number of different tactics during the first 10 games or so of the season. We've not really settled on anything. I think we should brace ourselves for the possibility that our time at PAOK might be a little bit more taxing than we've experienced at some of our previous clubs. However, let's show you the form and you can judge for yourselves what kind of start to the season we've made. So we started life at PAOK with that 4-1 victory over Victoria Pilsen that you saw in the last episode. We got the job done in the away leg. It wasn't entirely comfortable. We did go a goal down, but we managed to score 2 late on to make it a 6-1 aggregate win, but at 4-2 on aggregate in this tie. If our opponents had scored the next goal, we might have started getting a little bit nervous, but that eased us into the next round where we got a 2-0 and a 2-1 victory over Lokomotiv Plovdiv. But again, we didn't look very convincing in this game against opponents that are not doing that well in the Bulgarian league this season. We then kicked off the Greek Super League campaign. This looked like it was petering out into a 0-0 draw until our Austrian substitute, Adrian Gerbic, popped up in the last minute of the game to secure us a 1-0 victory. But again, we didn't look like a strong team in this fixture, and we certainly didn't look like a strong team in the next game. We'd made it through to the group stages of the Europa Conference League, where it had been drawn against Hajduk Split, Kristiansund from Norway, as well as Luzern from Switzerland. We went out to Croatia and started life with a 1-1 draw. Again, we went down very early in this game, our defence just looking brittle and vulnerable before Miguel Almiron sealed an equaliser for us. Before we moved on to the only game so far this season when we've really looked dominant, we beat Apollon 4-0, all of the goals coming from Maitzian Melida, and we followed that up with a good win, but again, not a convincing one. We played our first real tough opponents of the season, I think, in the shape of Panathinaikos. We won the game 2-1, but we needed a penalty in order to take the lead in that game, and we clung on for it. They had a sending off as well, which made things a little bit easier for us, and at this point I was really starting to question the way we were playing. We just did not look fluent, and with so many unhappy players in the hierarchy, that might go some way to explaining it, but my fears were confirmed in the next game. We played against Asteras and we were 2-0 down in this game. We got a late goal from a corner. It was little more than a consolation. Our opponents hit the woodwork several times in this game, so we tweaked things a little bit for the Kristiansund game. We beat them 3-1. We were 3-0 up until late on and we looked comfortable again, but then we've had two further scrappy results that have just left me questioning our system. We drew 1-1 with Levadiakos, and then we beat a lower league team, not even a second tier team, just 1-0 in the Greek Cup. Now the good news is that means that we've made some progress in the Cup, but we've got some tough games, some important games coming up. The derby against Aris today. We're then in Europa Conference League action against arguably the strongest team in the group in the shape of Luzern, and we've then got to play Olympiakos away, and we've also got games against AEK Athens on the horizon as well. So we have got a little bit of a sticky time with us at PAOK, but that does mean that we've got a little bit more of a challenge to sink our teeth into, because arranging this group of geriatrics into a system that gets the best out of them has so far defeated me. So we're going to experiment with this slightly lopsided 5-3-2 today. Whenever Melida has scored this season, which has only been in 2 games, by the way, he scored 4 goals in a league game and he scored a hat-trick in a European tie. So his stats look pretty good. He scored 7 for us in 8 games, but he's only actually scored in a quarter of the times that he's taken the field. But all of those goals have come when we've played him in wide areas, when we've moved him to be a striker alongside Crivelli or another strike partner. He is flattered to deceive, so rather than play him as a central striker, which would make our formation look a little bit more natural, we're going to move him out here back onto the left wing as an inverted winger and see whether that gets a performance out of him. Crivelli has been struggling with injuries. He's been in and out of the side this season, and we've got 2 fullbacks who've also been struggling for fitness as well. We're going to have to make changes to the lineup today, both in the starting 11 and on the bench, because we've got to get out there and play the derby against a very stubborn opponent. Today is one of Greece's most hotly contested derby as 2 rivals go head-to-head in the Battle of Thessaloniki. We welcome Aris to the Tumba, a team that have won 3 titles in their long history and have been big spenders over recent seasons to try and seal a 4th. Their talented squad has 3 players predicted to be in the top scorers this season, including Italian Tommaso Baldanzi. Coach Matias Almeida has led them to the top of the table this season, and they are the favourites for today's derby game. Potentially the winner of this encounter could go top of the table as PAOK take on Aris in the Thessaloniki derby. Okay, we're against a good opponent today, and the player that I am a little bit concerned about is this Baldanzi. He plays in the number 10 slot, but he's the top scorer in the league, and I think he could rip us apart today, which is part of the reason why we've moved Sissoko just in front of the back 3 to try and offer us some extra protection and close down these through balls that have been so incisive against us so far this season. We've kicked off the game. We've had the first shot of the game, by the way, and during the opening 10 minutes, it looks like we've restricted our opponents a little bit. That's quite a pleasing start to the game. After 20 minutes, we've finally got a highlight in this game. We've had nothing so far. We've got the ball deep in our defence, and our back 3 are trying to play us up the field. Sissoko's there as a little outlet. He's got fairly good distribution, and although playing a defensive midfielder in front of a back 3 might make us look quite defensive, Sissoko has got the trait of likes to get further forward, so he will burst forward from that spot and maybe help make us a more advanced 3-man midfield. We've got Mike Tsian, who's been cutting in from the left, and this is what he does when we move him out there. He plays incredibly well. That is a heck of a goal to score in a derby game, by the way. When we move him up front, he cannot finish his dinner, I'm afraid. We've got Oleg down the left, a player who desperately needs a rest. Mike Tsian beats one man, fronts up another, and he has curled an effort right into the corner of the net. What a start that is in the derby. This really could ignite our season if we could find a way of playing that just gets the best out of our better players, not star players. Then I will be pleased, and I think we need to do it as quickly as possible. So as the match stats illustrate, that was a quiet old first half. Just 6 shots between the 2 of us, only 2 of them troubling the goalkeeper, and the one that we had on target has flown into the net. I think we're going to have to tell the players that we're going to have to not get too complacent, because if we could hold on to this lead, it could be a huge result. So just looking through our match ratings at half-time, and it looks like Sissoko's played pretty well in front of the back three, so maybe that's an experiment that's working out all right. In fact, just 14 seconds into the second half, we've raided down the left. Oleg may be tired, but he puts in a mean delivery, and Crivelli has risen and fired a header past the keeper. We're 2-0 up in the derby. We've got a packed Tumba who are going to be very pleased with this result. 24,000 of them in attendance. That is a great header. He was marked by two men and he's just peeled off the back of one of them and fired us into a 2-0 lead. On 55 minutes, we're coming forward again. It's Oleg again, the outlet for us down the left. I think we're going to have to take him off, though. You have a little look at his fitness and conditioning compared to the other players. He's well off the pace. And if we pick up an injury to him, we're in all kinds of trouble. But now our opponents have come forward. We've relied on Latika to make a smart stop down to his left, and we fired it into the stands. So on 65 minutes, we are going to make that change. We're going to bring Bakuna on, another player who's really suffered with injuries. He looked so good in our first episode, but we've struggled to get him onto the pitch on a consistent basis since then. We'll move Pereira over to the left. He's comfortable on his left foot, but it's not his preferred one. And we'll let Bakuna try and do some damage down the right, where we've looked pretty quiet so far this game. We're hurtling our way towards the 70-minute mark. I think on 78, 79, we might make another couple of changes. It's been a very quiet game for highlights. We've reached that stage. Let's see what else we can do with our team. We've got Sissoko looking pretty tired. We do have a natural replacement on the bench. It's a young player I've been giving some game time to, Alexis Kotsaridis. He's raw. He's only 18. But as a defensive midfielder, I think he's a reasonable option. The derby might overraw him a little bit, but at least he's going to be a little bit more energised than Sissoko was. And I think we could do with making a change elsewhere in our midfield as well. Rog is looking tired, but we don't have any other natural midfielders other than Almiron. So let's try that little experiment. We'll bring Almiron on for Rog. I don't think Almiron's a natural box-to-box midfielder. Maybe he could play the roving playmaker role and see whether he can be a little bit more influential on the ball. He'll certainly work hard for us. He's got some very good mental attributes, and we might just need to see this game through for a 2-0 win. We've not been unduly troubled during this game. They had that one shot that Latika managed to push away. Otherwise, we've looked pretty good. As we get a little header on target from our defensive midfielder that we brought onto the field. It does mean it's out of position, though. The back three have mopped it up for us. Ingerson, who's been the worst performing of our three centre-backs, even though I flagged him up as the strongest of our defenders, manages to win the ball for us there. We've got men over, but we've lost out by playing the ball high. We've won it back. Bakuna drifts inside, gives it to Kotsaridis, and here's Maitian. He's in again from that left wing spot, and he has fired another one past their keeper. 3-0 in the derby. Might just endear us to the fans and the press, who've been none too impressed with the start that we've made. 92 minutes on the clock. You tell me, is this going to be a proper highlight, or is this just a very long full-time highlight? We're 3-0 up, despite the fact that we've not really created very many great chances. And they've got the ball all the way back with their keeper. They're not going to have enough time to score a goal now, surely. They've got 30 seconds. We just need to win the ball back and keep it deep in their half. Then I think the fans and the press got to be reasonably pleased with this. That's a hopeless ball, and that should see us to the end of the game. Latika will take his time over this, I hope. So I'm not sure what we make of that performance. We've won it 3-0, but our opponents had an XG that was higher than ours. But it does mean we've managed to ease ourselves to second place in the table behind Olympiacos, who I think have got to be the favourites to lift the title this season. But we shouldn't knock the performance too much. At least it sealed us a win. And if you would like to learn more about our opponents today, we featured them in an earlier video on the channel, which you might like to check out next.